On October 12, 1972, a small chartered plane departed from Uruguay in South America. Its destination was Santiago, Chile's capital. The aircraft carried several rugby players known for their tall and muscular builds. In total, there were 45 people on board, including some family members and the friends of the players. The journey was expected to be brief, typically taking only 3 hours from Uruguay to Santiago. However, the route passes over the massive Andes Mountains. The Andes, stretching across South America, is the world's longest mountain range. It boasts some of the highest peaks outside the Himalayas. These majestic mountains would prove fateful for our story's passengers. On that October 12, a storm raged in the mountains, forcing the plane to halt its journey. The pilots decided to pause and resume the next day. The aircraft landed in Mendoza, Argentina for the night. The following day, October 13, the plane took off again at 2:18 p.m. The pilots had confirmed improved weather conditions. For the next hour, the flight progressed smoothly. At 3:21 p.m., the pilots began their descent. The plane was nearing Santiago but still among the mountains, as high peaks surround the city. During the descent, severe turbulence suddenly struck. The plane shook violently from side to side. Clouds enveloped the aircraft, obscuring all visibility. Unexpectedly, alarms sounded and warning lights flashed, puzzling everyone. The rugby players in the cabin remained calm, not taking the turbulence seriously. Amidst their banter, a passenger glanced out the window as the clouds parted. To his horror, he noticed they were dangerously close to the mountain. As the plane emerged from the clouds, the pilots realized they were heading straight into a massive rock face. In a panic, they attempted to lift the plane. The ground collision alarm blared loudly. The pilots applied maximum power to gain altitude and clear the mountain safely. Tragically, it was too late. The plane's rear struck the mountain while ascending. The entire back section of the aircraft broke away. The last 2 rows of the seats literally flew out of the plane, taking 3 passengers with them. The plane continued upward for a few more seconds before it began to plummet. Moments later, another impact occurred. The left wing snapped off, and more passengers were thrown from the aircraft. The plane's fuselage plummeted, cracking into a glacier. It hurtled down the icy slope at 350 kilometers per hour, dropping 700 meters before its final impact. The collision devastated the aircraft, ripping passenger seats from their moorings. The cockpit crumbled, instantly killing the pilots. Debris scattered across the frozen landscape as the once intact plane now lay in ruins. The wreckage came to rest on an unknown Andean peak, 3,570 meters above sea level. Astonishingly, 33 out of the 45 passengers survived the crash. They had miraculously endured the impact. But many were hurt and their location remained a mystery. Later, it was discovered that the plane had veered 80 kilometers off its intended path. This marked the beginning of an agonizing tale of survival. Friends, neither the survivors at that moment nor could fathom the ordeals that lay ahead. This is the gut-wrenching account of Uruguayan Air Force Flight 571. Let's delve into it in today's video. Plane down in Andes, 45 on board, presumed dead. Survival stories capitative people. All passengers were thought we have perished. It became known as the Andes miracle. In the immediate aftermath, 2 survivors emerged relatively unscathed. Robert Canessa, 19, and Gustavo Gazerbina, 20. Both medical students sprang into action. They began assessing who was alive and how to aid the injured. Many passengers had sustained severe trauma. Among them was Fernando Prado, 23, unconscious due to a skull fracture. The 2 aspiring doctors did their utmost to help the survivors. Meanwhile, within an hour of the plane's vanishing, Chilean air search and rescue was notified. 4 aircraft were dispatched to locate the survivors. They scoured the area from dusk till nightfall, but no avail. The rescue team concluded, based on radio transmissions, that the plane must have crashed in a remote, hard-to-reach area. The challenge was compounded by the aircraft's white exterior, which blended seamlessly with the snowy, icy terrain, making it nearly impossible to spot from the air. On the night of October 13th, the remaining passengers clung to hope. They believed that if they could endure one night and find a way to fend off the cold, rescue would arrive the next day. Sadly, 5 injured passengers succumbed to the frigid night. The survivor count dropped from 33 to 28. The remaining used the plane's fuselage as shelter, using luggage, seats, and snow to seal off the rear, creating a warmer space inside. The following day, October 14th, saw 11 aircraft from Argentina, Chile, and Uruguay join the search effort. They were searching in the right area. The crash site was within their search zone, yet they failed to locate the wreckage. The survivors attempted to write SOS on the plane's roof using lipstick, but soon realized they lacked enough to complete the message. Then they tried creating a large cross in the snow using suitcases, hoping search planes might spot it. This too proved futile. That day, they watched helplessly as not one, not two, but 3 aircraft flew overhead. They screamed, waved frantically, and did everything possible to catch the pilot's attention, but all in vain. Another day passed in the desperate attempt. On October 15th, the survivors recognized their dire need for water. A passenger named Fito Strauch devised an ingenious solution. He used a metal sheet as a solar collector, focusing sunlight to melt snow. He then collected water droplets in empty wine bottles. Additionally, many passengers repurposed seat cushions as makeshift snowshoes, while seat cover wool provided much-needed insulation against the biting cold. On October 16th, 3 days post-crash, Fernando Prado awoke from his coma. As consciousness returned, he was met with the devastating reality that his mother had perished in the crash and his 19-year-old sister was gravely injured. Prado tirelessly cared for his sister, bringing her food and water. However, despite his effort, she succumbed to her injuries 8 days after the crash. Such tragedies serve as stark reminders of life's fragility and unpredictability. We can never be certain of our time left. That's why the adage "live every moment" rings true. Embrace each day, each moment of your life, for tomorrow is never guaranteed. These harrowing events underscore the resilience of the human spirit in the face of unimaginable adversity. The survivors' ingenuity in creating shelter, finding water, and attempting to signal for help demonstrates the length people will go to when fighting for survival. Their story is not just one of the physical endurance, but also of mental fortitude. As they grappled with loss, uncertainty, and harsh realities of their situation, their failed rescue attempts highlight the challenges faced by search and rescue operations in remote, treacherous terrains. Despite having the correct search area, the camouflage effect of the white plane against the snow-covered mountains made visual detection nearly impossible. This emphasizes the critical importance of emergency locator, beacons, and other technologies that can aid in locating crash sites in difficult conditions. As the day wore on, the survivors faced not only the physical challenges of their environment but also psychological toll of their ordeal. The loss of loved ones, the constant uncertainty of rescue, and the harsh realities of their situation would have tested even the strongest minds. Yet, they persevered, adapting to their environment and working together to increase their chances of survival. This story serves as a powerful reminder to the preciousness of life and strength of human will. It challenges us to appreciate each day we have and to face our own challenges with courage and determination. The survivor of Flight 571 didn't know what lay ahead, but they faced each day with resilience and hope, a testament to the indomitable human spirit. The harsh mountain environment posed additional dangers. Snow blindness, a condition caused by the sun's reflection of snow and ice, threatened their eyesight. With only 3 pairs of sunglasses among them, protection was limited. On October 21st, 8 days after the crash, hope dimmed further. Search and rescue teams, having found no signs of life, officially ended their 142-hour operation. They believed survival after so many days was unlikely. Amidst their despair, a glimmer of hope emerged. The survivors discovered a transistor radio in the plane's wreckage. Roy Harley, a rugby player with an interest in electronics, managed to get it working by improvising a long antenna. However, this radio only received signals. They couldn't transmit. On the 11th day post-crash, they learned the devastating news that the search has been called off. The announcement shattered their spirits. Some wept, others prayed, their world suddenly feeling smaller and more isolated. Fernando Parado, however, remained stoic, his mind already formulating a different plan. By this point, this meager food supplies was nearly exhausted. They had started with just 8 chocolate bars, a tin of mussels, 3 smaller jars of jam, some almonds, peanuts, dates, candies, dried plums, and a few wine bottles. Strict rationing had been implemented early on, with Parado subsisting on a single chocolate-covered peanut for 3 days straight. But even this extreme measure wasn't enough. So at the altitude of 3,800 meters, there was no vegetation or wildlife to sustain them. Desperate attempts to eat parts of the plane, such as seed cotton and leather, only made them sicker. As starvation loomed, the survivors faced an unthinkable choice. To stay alive, they decided they had no option but to consume the bodies of their deceased friends and family members. This decision was agonizing, given that most of the deceased were their classmates, relatives, or loved ones. Yet, as one survivor put it, we have to eat, and the only probable things were the dead bodies. This grim decision made a turning point in their struggle for survival. It was choice born of desperation, challenging their moral and ethical boundaries. The survivors were forced to confront the harsh realities of their situation and make decisions that would haunt them long after their rescue. This story is a testament to the lengths humans will go to survive and the difficult choices we face when we pushed to our limits. It raises questions about the nature of morality in extreme circumstances and the psychological toll of such experiences. As we reflect on their ordeal, we are reminded of the fragility of life and the strength of human will. Their experience challenges us to consider how we might react in similar circumstances and appreciate the comforts and security we often take for granted. The survivor's journey was far from over. They would face more challenges, make more difficult decisions, and test the limits of their endurance. But their will to live, their ingenuity, and their ability to adapt would continue to be their greatest assets in the face of seemingly insurmountable odds. Plane crash survivors of the survivors, Kenneth first suggested eating human flesh. Some initially refused, but after 2 days without options, they reluctantly agreed. By October 29th, 16 days post-crash, even this grim food source was running low. The survivors were directionless and desperate. That night, their situation worsened dramatically. An avalanche thundered down the mountain, filling the wrecked plane with snow. 8 people suffocated, leaving only 19 alive. Ted, Roberto, you had it. You are going to die. That's it. A very nice sensation of heat between my legs because I was peeing myself and saying that's it. The remaining survivors found themselves trapped in a cramped space beneath the snow. Parado used a metal pole to create a small air hole. After 2 grueling days of digging, they managed to tunnel their way to the surface. However, upon emerging, they saw an approaching snowstorm and wisely decided to retreat back into their shelter. This harrowing experience tested the survivors' resilience and pushed them to their limits. They faced unimaginable choices and endured extreme conditions. Their story highlights the human will to survive and the lengths people will go when faced with the dire circumstances. It also raises complex moral questions about what actions are justifiable in life or death situations. As we consider their ordeal, we are reminded of the fragility of life and strength of the human spirit in the face of adversity. The Anis plane crash survivors, the survivors huddled in the snow cave for 3 days, clinging to life. When they finally emerged, the sky was clear, but their situation was grim. They realized no rescue was coming. If they wanted to live, they've had to save themselves. Sitting at the crash site was pointless. They had to fight until their last breath. Canessa, Parado, and Vizintin were the strongest. The group decided to give them extra food and warm clothes so they could search for help. Their first task was figuring out where they were. The co-pilot had mentioned passing Curico before the crash. They thought walking west would lead them to Charles' countryside, but they were way off. The co-pilot had been lost. They were actually 89 kilometers east, deep in the Andes. Unaware of this, they rested to build strength. So on November 15th, 33 days after the crash, the three set out. Hours of eastward trekking led them to the plane's rear section. Inside, they found a treasure trove: suitcases, chocolates, meat patties, rums, clothes, comics, medicine, and a two-way radio. They spent the night there. The next day, they walked a bit further east side, decided to try the radio. They needed batteries from the main wreckage and sent an iOS. They found 24 kg batteries in the tail but couldn't carry them back. So they tried to start the radio there. They got Roy Harley, who knew some electronics, to help, but it didn't work. The plane's system needed 115-volt AC and their battery was 24-volt DC. They couldn't connect them. After days of trying, they gave up. To survive, they had to head west. On December 11, 59 days post-crash, disaster struck again. An avalanche killed 3 more survivors. I was completely trapped by the storm. The avalanche, it was the deadliest silence you can imagine. I couldn't move. Only 16 remained to climb and western mountains. They needed a way to sleep in the minus 30 degrees Celsius nights. Carlos Miguel Rodriguez, an 18-year-old survivor, remembered his mother teaching him to sew. He had his needles and sewing kit. I had the idea that insulation could make a sleeping bag, but I didn't just have the idea, I made it myself. And so they did. On December 12th, 2 months after the crash, Parado, Canessa, and Vizintin set out to climb the glacier without any proper gear. The only certain thing was the miracle in the Andes. Chile lay to the west. Reaching it meant scaling the mountain first. Still believing they were just a few kilometers away, they packed enough meat for 3 days, hoping to find help within that time. Picture this: you're like a child with no skills or trainings. You face a snowstorm trying to climb straight up using your hands and feet. You slip and slide, and for every step forward, you slide half a step back. To fight the cold, Parado layered up 3 pairs of jeans, 3 sweaters over his t-shirt, 4 pairs of socks, and a plastic bag over them. The cold was brutal. They lacked proper gear, maps, compasses, and climbing experience. At that altitude, the thin air made breathing difficult. Yet, they pushed on towards the mountain. Their homemade sleeping bag proved useful at night. By day, they inched forward slowly. The 3 huddled close in a single bag each night. At dawn, they'd start walking again, gradually making progress together. On the 4th morning, they realized their estimate was way off. The journey seemed endless. With food running low, Vizintin decided to return to the crash site. Only 2 would continue, needing less food. On December 15th, Vizintin headed back downhill. using an aircraft seat as a makeshift sled. He reached the crash site in just an hour, a journey that had taken them 3 days to climb. 3 hours later, Parado and Canessa reached the mountain peak. The view was devastating. Snow-covered mountains stretched as far as they could see. I couldn't breathe, speak, or think. What we saw was horrible. Instead of green valleys, we saw snow-covered peaks 360 degrees around us, to the horizon. Struggling, Parado searched for any sign of hope. On the far western horizon, they spotted two snowless mountain peaks. They decided to head in that direction. Refusing to give up, Parado and Canessa hiked for days. Finally, they reached a river with a flowing river, a welcome sight. Following the river downstream made finding a downhill path easier. They kept walking. After a grueling 9-day trek, on December 20th, they found signs of human presence. Cows in fields. Exhausted, they couldn't go further. Just then, across the river, look, a man on the horse. They spotted 3 horsemen. Parado tried to shout, but the river's roar drowned his voice. Luckily, one man noticed them and shouted back, "Tomorrow," promising to return the next day. True to his word, the man returned on horseback, bringing papers and pencils. He tied these to a stone with string and tossed it across the river. For the first time, Parado could communicate with the outside world. In Spanish, he wrote, "I come from a plane that fell in the mountains." He explained he was from Uruguay. He had been waiting for 10 days and that his injured friend were at the crash site. He pleaded for urgent help, describing their weakness, lack of food, and inability to walk further. He asked to be saved and inquired about their location. The message recipient was Sergio Catalan, a Chilean farmer. He gestured that he understood. Discussing with his friends, they vaguely recalled hearing about a plane crash months ago. The realization shocked them. They couldn't believe they were survivors. This incredible encounter marked the beginning of the end of their ordeal. The survivors' determination, coupled with this chance meeting, would soon lead to their rescue. The world was about to learn their extraordinary tale of survival against all odds in the unforgiving Andes Mountains. The story of these survivors is a testament to human resilience and the will to live. Despite facing unimaginable hardships, the crash, the cold, and the lack of food and proper equipment, they never gave up. The journey across the Andes, fraught with danger at every step, showcases the strength of the human spirit. This miraculous encounter with Sergio Catalan was the turning point. After months of isolation, cut off from the world, thinking they were forgotten, the survivors finally had hope. Their message, script on a piece of paper thrown across on a roaring river, would set in motion the events that lead them to their rescue. The story of the Andes survivors continues to inspire people around the world. It reminds us of the power of hope, the importance of perseverance, and the incredible feats humans can achieve when they pushed to their limits. Their ordeal in the Andes wasn't just about survival. It was about the triumph of the human spirit over seemingly insurmountable odds. Sergio tossed breads across the river and rowed west for 10 hours. They were far from any settlement. Upon reaching the nearest city, he alerted the army command in Santiago. Meanwhile, farmers brought Parado and Canessa to Los Montes on horseback for rest. Incredibly, they had hiked 61 kilometers over 10 days. Canessa has lost half his weight, now only 44 kg. Their story quickly became global news, shocking the world. The Chilean Air Force dispatched 3 helicopters for immediate rescue. Officers interviewed Parado and Canessa about the location. Using the pilot's flight chart he had kept, Parado plotted their hiking route. He joined the helicopter search to help locate the crash site. With Parado's guidance, they finally found the remaining survivors. And on December 22, 1972, 70 days post-crash, 2 rescue helicopters reached the survivors. In total, 16 were saved, all in dire condition, suffering from altitude sickness, dehydration, broken bones, and malnutrition. Yet they all recovered. So this tale teaches us about hope and perseverance. With determination, patience, and humanity, nothing is impossible. You can achieve the unimaginable if you set your mind to it. As the saying goes, where there's a will, there's a way. This disaster is also known as the Miracle of the Andes, a fitting name for such an extraordinary survival story. It showcases human resilience in the face of extreme adversity. The survivors' unwavering spirit and will to live carried them through unimaginable hardships. Their rescue marked at the end of the harrowing ordeal, but the beginning of a story that would inspire generations. It reminds us of the strength within us all, waiting to be tapped when faced with life's greatest challenges. So the miracle of the Andes stands as the testament to the power of hope and indomitable human spirits. If you found this story interesting and want to explore more historical tales, please like, subscribe, and click the bell icon. This way, you will never miss our latest videos about the past.